When the user presses the search button, we want to immediately pop up a new component onto the navigator and then kick off the search. It's better to transition to this view as soon as possible and then start the call, because in native mobile apps, we want the transition to feel immediate when we touch down on it. We don't want to be rewarded with a progress indicator and a subsequent transition when the data is ready. This seems like a small thing, but it's something that I've learned that makes a huge difference in an app. In the onSearchPressed function, we want to push the search results onto the navigator, and we do this by calling the push function on the navigator, which we get on the this.props object. Remember, when the component we're working with is expected to be rendered within a navigator, as is the case with the search component, we can expect the navigator to be available on the props for that component. This function expects an object telling it what component to push onto the stage and with what title. We don't have a search results component yet, but we'll create it soon. For the title, we give it a value of results. When you want to pass a value to another component using the navigator, you need to use the passProps property. In our case, we specify a key of search query and set that to the search query value that we've stored on state. Finish off that. Okay, remember I said that we'll reference this component later on? Well, let's require it up here and then go and create it, so that there is at least something to reference. We just require it with a relative path for a file called search results. To create the search results component, we duplicate the feed component, because we'll be working with the list view in the search results too, so it's a nice base to work from. I call that search results, which is what the search component expects it to be. We now do the same as we did when we created the search component we based on login. We get rid of all the non-essential code. We start by removing this require for moment over here. We won't be needing that. And we can also remove this require for the push payload component. Let's rename this component to search results, which means we have to jump down to the export at the end of the file and export the component using its new name. In the component constructor, we copy the search query value which was passed through on the props to our state store. It's better to copy over variables that represents the state of a component onto the state store, as this enables the component to update its view if the value changes. Strictly speaking, it won't be required for this component. We could have just used it directly from props, but it's good practice to do this, and I wanted you to be aware of it. In the component didMount function, we call a doSearch function instead, and then move down here to rename the fetchFeed function to doSearch. In here, for now, we just log out a message, doing search for, followed by the search query value that we copied onto state from the properties passed to this object from the search component. We won't be adding interactivity to the rows in the search results, so let's nuke this pressRow function. That means we can also remove this onPress over here. We'll get rid of this touchable highlight wrapper a bit later on. We clean out the contents of this view. We'll add some content in here a bit later on. Everything here is what we want. That's why we used the feed component as a base. We wanted to show a loader when it first shows, and we wanted to return a list view once the data is ready. Okay, we've done a bunch of stuff, so let's test that everything is still working. In our search view, we type a value, it can be anything, and press the search button. It's pushing our search results component onto the navigator, and it's showing our activity indicator over here.